The most powerful things that change our behavior and our character are the stories we tell ourselves. What I did notice is that the stories I would tell myself about myself were the things that changed my beliefs. They were the things that changed my character. Entrepreneurship is about three things. It's about changing the beliefs that you have. It's about increasing the skill set that you have. And then the character traits that go along with that to make sure the skills are successful. So I'll give you a simple example for this. So a friend of mine, he started a fitness app. It was doing about $20,000 a month. He was a top CrossFit Games competitor, but he was really ashamed because he wasn't the winner. And so he believed that his app wasn't good enough, and so he never promoted it. So it grew to $20,000 a month in revenue with him doing zero promotion. And when he realized that it was okay for him to promote it and people got a lot of value from it and the app was good enough, he went from $20,000 a month to like $150,000 a month, like that. And the difference was his beliefs. His skills were the same, right? His character traits are the same. He changed his beliefs. So when I actually started out getting in my own business, I had a chain of gyms. I knew how to run sales teams. I knew how to generate leads. I knew to do all these things. But what ended up happening was I had one missing piece, which was also a belief. But I had a mentor come in and say, you need to get in the licensing business. You need to license this model to lots of people rather than doing the actual model yourself. And so I did make that transition. And then we went from, I think we did like $2 or $3 million to doing 7. And the next year we did 28 million. And so it was because I had all these skills and I also had the character traits. I just needed, again, to change the beliefs. I was trying to give you an example with the character traits. So if you have, for example, if I had those skills, but I didn't have the character traits of being disciplined and being focused on one thing, I would have jumped between multiple entrepreneurial endeavors and never been able to see success, because even though I had the beliefs about what was possible, until I had the character trait of focus, the character trait of discipline, then I would not have seen the success, right? And this is what's crazy. When you see the overnight successes, this is what happens. I want to describe it to you so you understand it and how you can do it. So let's say that there's a ladder, all right? And you've got this pole on one side, you got the pole on the other side, and you've got the middle bar, okay? You need all three to move to the next level of the ladder. For example, you might have the left side built up 6 stories above where you're at. And you might have the right side built up 10 stories from where you're at right now. But all of a sudden, if you change your character and that character trait development gives you 3 more rungs, all of a sudden you go 3 rungs because you already have, the constraint has been removed. And so you can be more advanced in your beliefs than you are in your skills. Or you can be more advanced in your character trait than you are in your skills. Or you can be more advanced in your skills than you are in your beliefs, right? Is you have to have all of them. And so the point of this video is to get you to understand how to actually develop those soft things, because the skills are straightforward, right? The skills are, you just go buy the course and you read the book and you consume the content like this and you practice, you apply, right? That's what you have to do. That's it. That's it. One of the skills that I see lots of marketers these days not have is they don't know how to sell. They don't know how to develop a sales team. They don't know how to manage and grow. It's a skill they don't have. And as soon as they do, they go from 3 million to 10 million, like that. I was fortunate because I had a ton of the skills in my skill toolbox, but I went from making nothing to tons because I had all of these rungs of this ladder already built out to a $30 million level, except I just didn't have the beliefs. That was my issue. My wife was the one who was like, you can do this. Like, you don't have to have these gyms. Like, you can license out the model. Like, you can really succeed like this. And so I trusted her belief in me before I really trusted it for myself. But the point is if you have these 3 things, right? The stories that you tell yourself, right? One of the things that Layla always says, who's my wife, is she's like, what's the evidence, right? What's the evidence that you're so bad at this? Because you keep beating yourself up about this, but what's your evidence, right? What I do when I identify a character trait that I lack, or I identify a skill that I don't have, or a belief that I don't have. And this one, I'll just specifically talk about the character traits because I think it's really important. It's probably the one that people struggle with the most. What are the stories that you tell yourself about yourself? I had dinner recently with a $5 million a year entrepreneur, and he was like, I had a lot of trauma when I was a kid, and that's why I am this way. He speaks like he is this way because. And I was like, I think that's a really convenient story to tell yourself about why you are anxious, or why you exhibit anxious tendencies. I was like, but what if you did that and you just didn't exhibit anxious tendencies? What then? What if you just chose not to?
They don't let the outside world control them. And you can block out all that by focusing on the goal.
Why would you let them make you suffer more by telling yourself that they gave you this character trait? And it's because it's uncomfortable for you to suffer through the change of changing your identity. right? But Layla and I both believe this, is that your identity is fluid and you need to be able to change your identity and your character traits based on what the business requires if you want to grow, right? Like if you're not a patient person, then you need to become patient. If you want to develop a reputation, you need to become a person of integrity, which means sometimes short term you have to sacrifice. And the people who learn how to make the most money are the ones who know how to focus, and that's a character trait. I used to have more angry tendencies. I used to tend and trend towards being angry as a response to things that I didn't like, right? But one of the things that I liked, like that I try and tell myself, is that I am wise, right? And this is a character trait that's probably been the number one character trait that I've tried to develop over the however many years, just because I believe discernment is the single greatest character trait you can have. Because if you make the right decisions, the whole world is your oyster, right? If you can make the right call, the whole world is your oyster. And so when I think to myself, I am wise because I use the same formula that most people and most of us, myself included, use to destroy ourselves. And instead of saying an affirmation, you tell yourself the story of why what you're saying is true. You learn to argue against your own thoughts. And that's how you start developing this muscle, these traits that start to become a whisper and then a shout. And then they emanate from you, and you project them when you walk in the room subconsciously. But it's a practice that goes from active to passive in your mind, right? If you are a patient person, if you are a kind person, if you are an integrous person, right? If you are a hardworking person, right? We all have these stories that we tell about ourselves. And so if you have a limitation right now on your character trait, then you need to start telling yourself the story, I am this way because, not I am wealthy. Stupid. I think our brains are too smart for that stuff. You have to give it the reasons. You have to make the argument. Then those become things that will change who you are. And if you change who you are and how you make decisions, you'll change your entire life, and you'll be able to watch your business grow as a result of who you have become. For me, I chose to stop giving trauma power. Because most of the times when I see business owners, the reason they're not successful is not because they don't have the beliefs or because they don't have the skills. It's just because of who they are. I had a call the other day and somebody hopped on, and honestly, the guy was an asshole. He was like, man, employees suck, and I can never keep any good talent, and blah, 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 blah. And I just paused and I was like, well, that's not surprising. And he was like, what? I was like, have you met you? Like, I don't know what else to say. You know what I mean? Have you met you? Like, I don't need to change this guy's marketing, right? I don't need to change this guy's beliefs about his own business. He just has to change who he is. And I think a lot of us do that. We give ourselves the excuse for being impatient. We give ourselves the excuse for cheating. Well, my dad was, or my mom was, or my brother was, or whatever, right? Or when I was growing up, or when from my town, XYZ. I'm this way because is one of the most powerful words in the English language. It's great for persuasion. Make sure you use it to persuade yourself in the right direction.